Hi, I'm Kim Coco. Today we're going to do a 30-minute yin class for a post-walk or a post-hike. And I know sometimes it's really nice to get in and get into some of those layers of tissue in a more deep and restorative level, such as the 90-minute class I did on the same subject. And sometimes you only have a short amount of time for a nice stretch. So the shortened version will be if you are in a time crunch and still want to give some TLC to the outer hips, hamstrings, and legs. So I recommend starting at the wall. Grab a blanket if you want a bolster or a block as part of your prop, you can do that. Otherwise, we're going to take your blanket to the wall. You can always use the bolster and just place it nice and parallel to the wall, folding it up so you have enough room just really to support the low back. And once you get your blanket set up, watch out for some fuzz, you're going to swing your hips to the wall and go ahead and take your legs and place them up the wall like you would for Viparita Karani. So you're actually going to get right in there to get the blood rushing down back from the feet up to the heart in now a more passive way versus the vigorous way you were doing during the walk. So from here, you're welcome to keep your legs straight up in Viparita Karani, or if you want to take your legs out to the side, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And again, just lightly point and flex the feet wherever you are to create some extension of energy all the way out to your extremities. And then if you want a little bit of a shoulder stretch while you're here too, you can take your arms out into goalpost arms. You can take them out to the side. You can go ahead and stretch them up overhead even if that feels good. And then just notice if you can settle in as quickly as you can. Just starting to switch from a more active pace to a more internal gaze. And use your breath as a way to help you make that transition. So use your inhale and fill up deeply. And take a light pause at the top. Feel the hips soften and the back soften and the shoulders soften as you exhale it all back out. We'll do 2 more just like that, filling up deeply. Pausing at the top, softening the body. Exhaling the breath back out. 3rd time, fill up, inhale. Hold at the top. Exhale the breath back out. And then as you inhale again, just mindfully notice how the breath comes into the body. See if you can deliberately slow down the exhale to at least match the length of the inhale or maybe even become a bit longer. Maybe even close your eyes so that you take away the visual stimuli from your surroundings so that you can enhance the sensations from within. Feel gravity dropping your hips to the floor. Notice the effortlessness in the body now as the blood pumps or just passively moves back to the heart for reoxygenation and recirculation. Feel all 4 sides of your neck long. A broadness across the front of the heart. And the rib cage effortlessly expanding in all 4 directions. Every time you breathe in, softening anywhere in the body you can with every breath out. And setting any clear intention you have here for this brief time on your mat. Bringing that to your mind's eye now. ahead and take another deep breath in here. And stay for the exhale. And then use your hands to help draw your knees in towards your chest. Carefully roll yourself back over to one side. And then make your way up to a seat. We're going to go ahead and take pigeon next, so you can face the front of your mat. You might want a blanket to support your hip or a block underneath your torso. But we're going to go ahead and start with your right knee forward. So you might start in tabletop and then take your right knee towards your right wrist. Walk that left foot back in space if you need to. So that right heel comes towards the left hip. Support that right hip as you need to, so you can square the left hip to the front of your mat. And then use your hands to press the floor away and lift the torso up. And then as you exhale, maybe hinge and fold forward. And again, the block might be a nice support for underneath your torso, maybe a support for your head. And since this is more of a yin practice, can you find a place where you can rest comfortably first? If you've just come from a walk, you might notice the hips feel a little fiery. But can you feel some weight as they press down towards the floor or into a block or a pillow? And then can you let the head and neck relax? Come back to that rhythm of breath in that's nice and slow and deliberate. And the exhale that is equally as slow, if not longer. Starting to consciously shift into the parasympathetic nervous system, which restores and relaxes the body, counteracts all of the stressors we encounter physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's really using this time as a way to train and shift from that stimulation to relaxation, so that we can be active and alert when we need to, but also rested and detached when we need to be as well. Knowing when we need to be strong and courageous, and when we need to step back and nurture ourselves. When it's time to take a step forward, or when it's time to either take a step back or just even pause and not take action at all. Use this time as a way to restore that balance in your overall life. Using your breath as a way to stay connected in the present moment throughout it all. Can you soften the shoulders away from the ears? Can you feel a sense of heaviness at the torso? And even a sense of ease at the jaw and the tongue resting at the bottom of the mouth as the hips and legs get heavier. And then notice here, as you have about a minute and a half left, where can you settle in a little bit more? If you want to go deeper, how can you stay with a sense of purpose, or maybe even back off just slightly to maintain the depth of your breath? Take your next breath in nice and slow. Finish your exhale there. Use that next inhale to lift your torso back up again. Go ahead and rock onto the right hip and take that right shin parallel to the front of your, parallel to the side of your mat. That'd be very awkward at the front of your mat. And then the back shin parallel to the back edge of your mat. So you have this nice external rotation of the right hip and internal rotation of the left for deer pose. And if you want a bolster, it could be a really nice support here to place that bolster underneath your torso. If you're more flexible, just a blanket might be appropriate. Otherwise, we're going to take your hands to either side of the bolster, move that right hip away from the bolster, and then keep the length in the heart as you slowly begin to walk your torso out over the bolster. And then slowly you can turn your head to the left or to the right. And we're going to be here for about 5 minutes. So taking this nice balanced hip stretch into a little bit of a twist where the head and neck and jaw can relax. Start by even scanning at the soles of the feet, noticing the space between your toes. Notice how the difference between the right and the left leg are on your mat. So notice which part of your shins or your calves touch the ground. Notice if you have inner or outer thighs touching the ground. Maybe even move that right hip just slightly away from your bolster or the blanket in front of you again. Then notice the length of the vertebra and which part of your torso is actually being supported by a prop. And can you let the shoulders rest down so the shoulder blades can spread apart? And then feel the head and neck rest heavy as you notice how different it is to breathe with the front of your torso supported by a prop or the floor. Connecting back to that rhythm of breath you started with. Slowly in, deliberately lengthening the breath back out as you take rest in deer pose. Take your next breath in. And finish your exhale. Use your inhale to press back up to a seat. Swing your legs out to the side. We're going to take straddle pose. So we'll just stretch the legs out to the side. We're not going to be here as long as we were against the wall. But take your hands by the side of your hips. Lift the spine and lengthen. And then if you can let go and still sit upright, you can fold further forward. Otherwise, you might just let the head and neck dangle, or you can slowly walk your hands out. Again, we're not going to stay very long, but just taking a nice neutral pose here in between sides. Softening the head, neck, jaw, throat. And even though the head and neck are relaxed, the collarbones are broad, the front of the heart is open. There's a sense of heaviness in the back of each leg, even though there's not a lot of downward pressure or energy moving out through the legs. There's just a nice sense of groundedness between the legs and your seat as the spine lifts up and out of the pelvis. Take about 3 more rounds of breath. Use your next inhale to walk your hands back up if they're not there already. Go ahead and we're going to come to the back, face the back of your mat, grab your props if you need them for pigeon, second side. Go ahead and you might come to tabletop first before you take that left knee towards the left wrist, or maybe just walk that left knee towards the front of your mat, walk your right foot back in space. Take your hands one by each side of the hip. Lift and lengthen. Feel all 5 toes on that right foot pressing down into the floor to help turn your right hip towards the back of your mat. Lift the heart. Use your exhale to fold. Grab your block if you want it under your chest again, or your bolster. And you've got 5 minutes here, so enjoy it. Settle in. Connect back with your breath. And support your head and neck if you can, so there's really no tension being accumulated in the body. And notice the difference right to left being here. Might feel significantly different side to side. And instead of necessarily pushing for a sense of evenness or balance, can you let that internal wisdom of the body start to balance itself out? Allowing you to rest into the pose, focusing solely on your breath, knowing that the balance is going to come to you, and all you have to do is allow it. And just by being here on your mat in a more passive but yet alert state, you're doing just that. Maybe lengthen your breath in a touch more, and maybe slow down the breath a bit as well. And you're about halfway through. So if you want to re-lengthen the spine, you want to drop your hips a little heavier towards the floor. Can you rest more comfortably here and find a sense of stillness with the body without needing to fidget or move or adjust? Unless you're in pain, obviously come out if that's the case. But otherwise, stay and settle in. Use your next inhale to walk yourself back up. Roll onto the left hip. And then go ahead and take your left shin parallel to the long edge of your mat. That leg's externally rotated. Take your right shin parallel to the back edge of your mat. So just by the very nature of this pose, that right hip is going to be off the mat. Grab your bolster if you want it for the second side. Move all the other props out of the way. And then slowly take one hand to each side of your bolster on the back, facing the back edge of your mat. Lift and lengthen the heart, and slowly walk your torso out to your bolster. And again, you've got a couple minutes here, so notice your body from the feet to the hips, from the hips to the head. Feeling that left hip move away from the left side ribs. Shoulders relax down. Notice where your mind has gone after your practice here, where you're slowing down. Can you continue to connect with the easier, less resistant thoughts? Whether it be shifting from a sense of tightness in the body that you're aware of to the connection you're making with your body just by being here. From a sense of hurriedness, of needing to get things done, to knowing that all you have to do right now is be in the moment and breathe. From the mentality that you have to push and force things to change, to knowing that by being present and clear-minded, you can allow those changes to unfold before you without any effort. Can you settle back in through your breath? Take about 3 more slow rounds of breath. And then use that 4th inhale to press your way back up. You might slowly decide to face back at the front of your mat with the feet mat distance apart and windshield wiper the knees. And then we'll set up for one last pose before Shavasana. So you might choose to keep your bolster. You might even prop up your bolster with a block. We're going to take saddle pose. X-nay on the R. Take the knees wide on your mat. Sit on your heels. See if you can tuck the tailbone under and lengthen the low back. And slowly begin to take your torso back to the bolster. And if this feels too far back, then you can prop up extra blankets and pillows behind you so there's no crunchiness in the low back, but you still get into the front of the quads, the rectus femoris, the whole front line of the body. So the heart can open again. If this feels easy, by all means you can take your torso closer to the ground. But again, find a place that's about 50 to 70%. I'm going to find the ability to let go of the breath here. And allow the heart to naturally open. The back side of the heart gets supported by your props. Allow the hips to stay heavy, and even send your breath, even though it's not necessarily forceful, but just notice the breath moving to the low back so it stays soft. Again, if there's any pain, please come out and take your legs straight so you can still get a nice heart opener here without the pressure on the knees. But if you're relatively comfortable, please stay. Connect with the rhythm of your breath without having to control it in any way, shape, or form. You can find the hint of an inner smile as you check in with any changes that have been made in just this short amount of time, physically, emotionally, or mentally. And when your mind wanders, come back with your attention to the rhythm of your breath. Just notice how you feel back layer by layer, tension or holding, allowing this inner sense of calm to surface, sense of inner knowing to get brighter. And you're welcome to stay here longer in your saddle pose. I don't know why I get those two mixed up all the time. You're welcome to stay in your saddle pose if you want to, a little bit longer, or slowly make your way enough up to a seat where you can swing your legs out in front of you towards a supported Shavasana, keeping the head above the heart. Sense of being supported by your props. Really taking note of this new place from which you can transition into the rest of your day. A sense of stillness and purpose and clarity. By all means, stay longer if you'd like. Or bring some gentle movements to your fingers and your toes. Maybe stretch your legs and your arms out again. Pretty carefully bring your way back to a seat. Take a moment to bow your gaze. And thank yourself for a really powerful, even though brief, time on your mat to make shifts on all levels of your being. Thanks for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste.